Hi, my name is Fred Satilli. I like to think that I'm a pretty clever guy. I've noticed that throughout history, there have been several ways to manage population. At the beginning of tribalism, we grew until we had kings and queens. That, monarchy, was big for thousands of years. As populations grew, it became just too much for one monarch, so we had oligarchies, ruled by a small group of rulers. As religion grew, which is the normal inclination of our species, we discovered theocracy, rule by religious leaders. After a while, the good old Greeks created the Greek democracy, which gave each stakeholder in society an equal vote as to how that society was to be administrated. Next was the Roman Republic. This was where the citizens elected representatives to vote as to how the society was to be administrated. After a while, the Roman Republic was huge, and regional power struggles created factions. The factions had to be united, or the overarching structure of the Roman Empire would be divided and fall. Julius Caesar was elected to be dictator, and then summarily assassinated by the people who elected him. Now, the empire had to unify around something else, so theocracy was chosen. In 400 AD, the Roman Republic became a Christian empire ruled by clergy, whose power, threatened by technology, ushered in the Dark Ages. Soon after, back in the Middle East, at around 600 AD, a highly disenfranchised guy decided to combine religion with military, and Islam was born. Forced servitude through martial law and fear of eternal damnation. This concept of societal control fused two power sources, muscle and sanctification, into an amazingly strong vehicle for control. Islam swept across the world for a good 800 years, winning conquest after conquest until it became unmanageably too large. As its ability to hold central control waned, independent city-states like Florence, Venice, and Vienna became so strong that they were able to stop the incursion of Islam. The Renaissance happened organically. It was power through technology. The power of those city-states was held by capitalists or independent businessmen, if you wish, independent business families. Those businessmen that were controlling the wealth needed vast, highly technologically skilled workforces. Those valuable skills were held by guilds, and as such, labor unions were born. Interestingly, as a side note, labor unions control California at this time. California is among the top 10 financial powers of the world. If you have any questions as to the power of families Pelosi, Feinstein, Newsom, and Brown, you realize that within our country there is a fiefdom based on an oligarchy, a shadow government within a federal government. Now, in addition to kings, a whole smattering of vassal lords were created to govern the land. We had dukes, earls, counts, viscounts, principalities, and other fiefdoms. This created an ability to have fluid governance as families rose and fell in power without harming the superstructure of the skilled workers operating regardless of who was the current pompous pinnacle of politics. That went on until a group of highly intelligent and analytical people decided to try a constitutional republic. The promise of this method of population management was so popular back in 1776 that the guys who tried it were able to force the greatest military power in the world to take a hike. It worked. Unbridled prosperity ensued. About 120 years later, another highly disenfranchised guy named Marx wrote the Communist Manifesto, each to his ability and each to his need. It was a new idea that sounded great on paper, but Marx neglected to understand the need and describe exactly how to make success of this, and to this day, many have tried, but all have failed. After that, another disenfranchised guy named Hitler decided that National Socialism was the way to go, and another guy named Mussolini did something similar. He called his brand fascism. Both were dictators who, like Caesar, were killed. After they were killed, people were still hungry for power, the kind of people who have that kind of hunger. There was one nation at the top of real wealth after the Second World War, so a group of businessmen got together and decided that they would control that wealth by recycling an old tactic, but with a subtle twist. Instead of slavery through military dominance, they would exploit slavery through debt. Well, the project is going well for them, but has been discovered to be nothing more than a self-destructing Ponzi scheme. So another scheme must be developed. Now, I've been working on a book that will describe an entirely new method of societal management, a new form of government never before ventured. I'm proud of my idea for my political science fiction, but I started on this years ago, years before we were presented with our current circumstances. The book will still hold its own, but I could never have guessed that we would have a whole new chapter in American history before the book's release. Now, our Democrat Party has morphed from a political party into a religion. I will explain. The Democrat Party used to build power with a promise to redistribute wealth. It now attempts to build power through servitude based on fear. Fear is the power through which theocracies rule. The fear of eternal hell drives the masses to obedience. That is what we have now. The Democrat Party, with its influence on the population through media and educational indoctrination, has built a society reactive to fear. Remember, we used to be the home of the brave. Now, I am a philosopher, and there aren't many of us. I found another and want to present him to you. This guy is a Zen master if ever there was one. He lives his philosophy. He works more than 70 hours a week for Visiting Angels, a company that does in-home senior care. He works with the people who need the most compassion. People with severe dementia who tell him the same story every 3 minutes, hour after hour, when they're not taking a swing at him. I kid you not. He is a beautiful person. So please take 5 minutes and listen to the sage wisdom of Stanley Hickman.
Hello, my name is Stanley Hickman, and I want to tell you what I really think about not just what's going on, but also mention where I came from. As I said, my name is Stanley Hickman, and I was born in Washington, D.C. I also lived in New York for a couple years, which I don't remember, but when I was about 4, I moved with my mother and my siblings to Pennsylvania, which is where I lived and was brought up. It is a totally different world now than it was then. And I am not 100% sure of what happened to me with respect to our political climate today, but I can say this. I was taught by my family to care about everyone, especially my mom, who actually died when I was 11. I think that the biggest thing that we face is fear. And so before I continue, I would just like to say that in Hebrews chapter 2, verse 14, it says, "Therefore, since the children share in flesh and blood, he himself also partook of the same, that through death he might render powerless him who had the power of death," that is, the devil, "and might free those who through fear of death were subject to slavery all their lives." The only thing that I can really be certain about is that through the work of God himself, I escaped the fear of death. When I was 11, as I said a moment ago, my mother passed away. I was 25 years old before I saw my first picture of my father. I am one of what was 9 children. A few of my siblings have passed away. I am right in the middle. 3 girls above me, 3 girls below me, 1 guy above me, 1 guy below me. And I don't understand, having lived through that kind of situation, this whole issue of not caring about people unless they care about what you say. So what I would like to say is, it is better for us to understand that it is the fear of death that people use, and that is of the devil. They use fear and fear of death and fear of every type to try to move you into what they think. I think that what is best is to have your own conviction and to move by that conviction, to know what that conviction is, and to not use society, race, or any other thing to make you say to yourself, I am a victim, and therefore, and then you can go off and say whatever you want. This one's good, that one's bad, whatever. My name, Stanley Hickman. My choice to care about people, to care about things that really matter, and to stand firm against what I consider to be evil of the devil, and that is the usage of fear for any reason.
Okay, so I wanted to recap what Stanley said, and I wanted to go back and take parts out of what he said and deconstruct it and restate the points. But after watching it a number of times, I don't think I could do a better job than he did. I think that it's up to each individual to listen to his words and to hear his voice and to draw from it what you think he's saying. I will give my own thoughts, and I think that in our Western world, our understanding of religion is very schizophrenic. We seem to have a God who is all loving and unconditionally loving, with a philosophy of you do unto others as you would have them do unto you, and peace for your immortal soul and that kind of thing. And it seems that there's a great deal of love expressed by God towards mankind. But then there's, on the other side, there's the church with its rule through fear. So they want you to do what they say so that you don't suffer eternal damnation, that kind of thing. So it seems to me that Stanley derives his power from the loving God. He wants to take care of people. People are all his children. He's acting in God's image. He's taking care of his flock, taking care of his most vulnerable. And I listen to him yourself. I'm just giving you my extrapolation, is that he feels that rule through fear is the dark side, is the devil side, is the thing that is an element of religion, but when it's utilized to control people, it's not where your source of power should come from. If your source of power in controlling the population is to control them through fear, it's a destructive force. Whereas I don't want to use the word controlling, but controlling them through love, encouraging them through love to become more like Stanley. I don't want an entire society that's like Stanley, but I'll tell you what, if everybody was like Stanley, if they had the heart of Stanley Hickman, it certainly would be a better world than we have now. So go back to 10 minutes and to 9 minutes and 10 seconds. Listen to him as many times as you need, because there's a lot in there. There's a lot in there. His Bible quote is fantastic. Many of us poo-poo the Bible, and there are reasons why. But sometimes a little re-examination, you might find that there is some pretty good stuff in there. So don't be so quick to dismiss some of the philosophy expressed in the Bible and some of the archetypal stories that are told, because many of them are the basis of our morality. And there is no more moral person than Stanley Hickman, and he derives his moral nature from his love of God and of his love of the beauty that God's love expresses. So when you have a political inclination, I think that the creators, God the creator, is much more what you want to be than God the destroyer. So before I ramble anymore, thank you all for watching. My name is Fred Satilli. This is the Voters Union of Accountability Nation. And boy, I'll bet you Stanley Hickman is a man who doesn't have to account for anything. I bet he's led a very, very virtuous life, and I'm very proud to be his friend. So thanks again, and we'll pick up another topic in the days to come.